As a business leader, do you ever wish you could execute like Jim Collins? Watch this video to learn how. So actually what this is certainly Jim Collins focused. What it is it's a brief overview or book review, here it is here, of Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. So it's an update of his original book. The co-author has been deceased now for I'm not exactly sure how long, but he got the blessing of the other author's family and updated this edition. So it's got some new insights, which he likes to call Jim's insight from 2020 or something to that effect. In any case, it's a great book. I never read the original, and that's totally okay, given this is a modern era and is rather different than when this was originally written. So this could easily become a series because I think there's so much to cover. But before we start, if you find any value, any insights in here worth sharing, please share this video with another person, subscribe, like, and so on. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks. So there's lots to cover, as I said. So this is mainly going to be an overview. And I've basically set this up working on the bookmarks, things that jumped out at me while I was listening to this book. So that's the essence of it. So what I like best about his books is he is an empiricist. He uses data and proof. And one other thing that he likes using is his matched pair methodology, where he takes two comparable companies in the same era with the same market variables and then looks at what the difference between those two are and which one obviously doing very well and the other one doing less well or terrible, given the same market conditions. So it's really great that he controls for that important variable that few others actually pay any attention to. So the other thing I love very much about Jim Collins and his writing in his books is he scientifically tests or examines historical data and then takes what seem like obvious things, and many of the points in this book seem obvious, except he takes, that common sense, all that stuff, of course, that's the way you do it. That's the way I do it too, except he actually tests to separate the common sense or the obvious that works from the obvious that doesn't, using that more scientific methodology and looking at that historical data. So his first thing that really jumped out to me, I don't remember whether I've seen this in any of his other books. I've read several or listened to several, but I don't remember if I saw this, which was this: first who, then what. And I've added another phrase to that, or fail. That is, he says, unless you have the right people on the bus, the greatest idea in the world is likely to fail. But if you have a fantastic group of people and a mediocre idea, and he cites several things, including a lot of the Pixar movies, that oftentimes they started out kind of sucking, but they had a fantastic team. And so by the end, you have legends like Toy Story and other ones that we all know and love now. Frozen. A lot of these stories started off pretty bad in their first screening, but they had the right people. And that's kind of his point, that without the right people, even the best idea could be in trouble. And with the right people, a very unremarkable idea could be made into something amazing. The next thing that he does, that he talks about leadership style and sort of dispels the myth, especially the myth of a genius with 1,000 helpers. Not every great company has a leader like Steve Jobs was or became later on. So really what he talks about is how there are all stripes and types of great leaders. They share common traits, which I don't have enough time to get into in this review. But as I said, this is probably going to become a series, and I can go deeper into that. But the main gist that jumps out at me is he talked about empowering individuals to be their best. That means they can make decisions that cost the company money, appropriate to their level, to do best according to what's coming next, which is vision. So vision for Jim Collins, and the way he describes it here, is I just remembered it. Got to do it while I think about it. It's an ADHD thing, and that is Jim's view from 2020. Those are the updates he added throughout the book to give his view from 2020 with respect to the original material and any updates in data and insight he had there. So the next part was, sorry for that interruption, vision. Now he talked about vision as a purpose beyond profits. Sort of what it basically answers the question as a company, what cause does your company serve? Okay, so this isn't a description of what you do. This is the why you do it in essence. Another analogy he made, which was actually quite clear, is it was the guiding star, the North Star, as it were, that's outside of your, that could help the company endure beyond the life of you, the leader, right? So basically the idea is that it will outlive the current leadership, and that will keep the company going. So the whole goal is exactly that, to assure that what made the company great will outlive the current leader, will outlive you as the leader. So that's the North Star. That's where you always cite to when you're not sure. And that is probably, I think he talked about like 100 years, 100 years or never, that's the enduring core beliefs and goals and purposes, your core values that never change. But then he talked about a mission, because he wanted to separate those two. A mission is the mountain you're on. Now, he talked about this as the BHAG, which I learned from this book that he had invented that phrase, the big, hairy, audacious goal. And then that big, hairy, audacious goal, of course, has to be very inspiring. And he gives it a time frame of about 10 to 25 years. Challenging, but doable, but definitely a long term. So, and then he breaks it down even further. You can get more mission specific or year specific or project specific about your BHAGs, but the larger BHAG, your mission, is the mountain you are climbing now. Now, when you reach the top of that mountain, you look for your North Star. Now you're talking about your vision or your purpose, and that will guide you to the next mountain and the next and the next and the next. And that's the difference between the mission and the purpose. Purpose being bigger North Star, mission being the mountain you're on. He also did the next thing, and I'm never going to get through this, so this is going to be at least 2 episodes, and that was luck favors the persistent, and I will add, and the consistent, because you have to be persistent, but you also have to be consistent in what you deliver. And he especially talked about the difference on return on luck, which he talked about in Good to Great and other books, saying 2 companies with exactly the same luck, good luck and bad luck, and how they responded to it, what was made the greatest difference. Luck can really serve you or go against you, but it's also how you deliver on that return on luck, your response to it. Now, he defines luck in a way I really like, because people who are sort of like, oh, luck doesn't exist. Can you honestly tell me that conditions which are unexpected and beyond your control do not exist? If yes, then you're right. Luck, according to this wonderful definition, does not exist, but it does. And like I said, what I love is him talking about the return on luck, unexpected conditions and situations. COVID-19 comes to mind, which is also beyond your control, but how you respond to that luck matters more than if it happens, because it happened to both controlled pair or matched pair companies in all of his studies, all of his books. And then later on in the book, he introduces a map which talks about inputs and outputs. I don't have time to get into this. I'm going to cut this short, and we're going to leave it pretty much there, except one more thing. And that was, he talked about strategy. And he said, if you can't control prices, that is, and if you aren't the market leader and can't set the price, you must control costs. I will continue this book review in the next one. This has been Crush It Club number 114, How to Execute Like Jim Collins. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.